Greetings, everyone. Welcome, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Rick, and this is the Gnostic Institute of Esoteric Magic. Today, we continue with our seminar on the magic of the runes, and we continue with the runes TYR and BAR. In our scope of presentation today, we are going to show you how is it that these two magical runes, TYR and BAR, are complementary runes that when we combine their practice, they can help us awaken the consciousness and enable the birth of the Son of Man within each and every one of us. Of course, this is all combined with our inner work, with what Samael asks of us, that is the revolution of the consciousness, so that we can effectively move forward in a path of transformation. When we start speaking about the rune TYR, the rune TYR is about awakened consciousness. This particular rune with the T, the Y, and the R, when we pronounce it, it is TYR. This rune is very specific towards helping the consciousness awaken. Taking this rune as a mantra, the letter T, that as you can see symbolizes the Egyptian Tau cross. The moment that T strikes, it strikes and it impacts directly at the consciousness. The letter I, this particular vowel invites the vibration of the blood as a vehicle of the consciousness. And the letter R brings about a harmonious vibration across all of the magnetic centers of the body, encouraging the circulation and the movement of this blood. So when we say the mantra TYR, this is what is happening within the human machine. Now again, TYR is about the awakening of the consciousness. It is about our opportunity to be able to receive these cosmic forces of the Christ and incarnate them within us. But these runic practices are also telling us something very specific without being explicit about it. And that is that our consciousness is not going to awaken passively. What we have seen, based on the experience that you have had thus far and everything that we have learned, is that the consciousness is just not going to awaken by itself. It must be struck, it must be vibrated, it must be circulated, and this is what the mantra is doing for us. Let me share with you a very interesting anecdote that Master Samael Aun Weor shares with us. This is a very interesting story that Samael shares as he is having an experience in the astral plane. And there are three main characters in this particular story. There is, of course, Master Samael. There is the presence of an awakened Aztec master. And there is the presence of one of Master Samael Aun Weor's students with him in the astral plane. The story goes by saying that Samael finds himself in the astral plane, and as he is there, he sees that sitting at the edge of the road, there is an ancient Aztec master that is meditating quietly. He is sitting at the foot of a cathedral, and he is at first indistinguishable from any ordinary merchant. But this master, as he's sitting there meditating, he is guarding a sacred relic. Samael notices that, realizes that that is an awakened being, and filled with reverence, he bows and receives a blessing from this master. Samael's student notices that particular relic, and because his consciousness is asleep, he bends down and grabs the sacred relic without realizing what he is grabbing. At that moment, Samael, being the Bodhisattva of the Archangel, full of fire, he says, "What are you doing? That is a sacred relic. Put that back." But the master explains to Master Samael that the disciple is not guilty about doing this. that he is acting in a way that is unconscious. And after saying this Aztec master holds the student with his hands. And as he is holding the head of the student with his hands, he breathes the breath of life into the student itself. And he tries several times with this very gentle, compassionate effort to awaken him, but the Shela itself, the student, remains asleep. And his inner condition is such that even though this happens, the Shela stands up once again, turns around, and continues to walk down the road. But he is walking, assuming the shape now of this gigantic gray lunar body that is, of course, made up of the collective of his defects. As the student walks away, Samael responds, does not react, responds with a judgment. He says, those lunar bodies are hideous. But the master, once again, the Aztec master, once again teaches compassion and saying, there are so many that find themselves in this unconscious state. This very short story, as we know that the stories of all the masters are full of symbols, this one is also full of symbolism. Notice how this particular story is emphasizing. How is it that us, those who are still working, anticipating the successful work of the fabrication of those superior existential bodies of the being, we are for the most part acting mechanically. We are unaware of anything and everything that is sacred around us. And this condition in which we find ourselves today, the masters do not see it with condemnation. They see it with understanding. And that is a teachable point for each and every one of us. It is a teachable point because of how easy it is for us to immediately judge everyone around us, to judge things that we do not like. And as we have said before, it's very easy to say that, it is difficult to put it into practice, yet this is part of the sacrifice that we must make. This is part of the outcome of what would be the self-observation as we are living our lives from moment to moment. And here we see ourselves reflected in Samael's student. We see the state of the ego. We see the lack of superior divine powers. We see that there is no response to that divine stimulus that the student is receiving. I mean, in this particular case, the Aztec master is breathing the breath of life into the nostrils of the student, seeking to wake him up, and the student does not respond. And something very similar happens with our own consciousness. Our being will communicate to us in dreams, through people, through symbols, intuits. Sometimes we will even perceive the voice of the silence. But if we are not watchful, we tend to discard that particular voice. But one thing we see as well, in the same way that this student, even in his condition of being a sleepwalker, naturally gravitates, moved by that internal magnetic force of the center of consciousness that is being developed, he naturally gravitates to the divine relic that we know that is an item, as a big symbol of wisdom. In the same way, we gravitate to the presence of the masters. We gravitate toward this wisdom, toward this knowledge is. And just like that student, the masters are, in their infinite compassion, willing to continue to try to help us, to move us, to stimulate us, and our being to work the consciousness so that we can then experience the awakening. The room TYR is linked to sacrifice and inner discipline. This symbolism of TYR that includes sacrifice and the effort of returning, in our case, the recurrence that we must go through, and for the great masters, the ability to reincarnate. This rune tir can guide us in the direction where we can become triumphants over life. I mean, in the story that we just saw, we have seen how is it that most disciples remain asleep even when most disciples, all of us aspirants to becoming true students, true disciples of Gnosis, we remain asleep even when we are physically close to sacred realities. Even standing next to this divine being, sometimes we don't even perceive them. So something must be done, and that something is a work that emerges directly from the consciousness. That work that translated into our day-to-day activities is a sacrifice. Well, that sacrifice, that discipline that we must bring, is what helps us in the awakening, because it has been shown proximity to the truth does not equal awakening. Proximity to the truth does not lead us to awakening. There has to be a work done very specifically by the consciousness itself. And this rune tir, astrologically, it is associated with the constellation of Pisces. In terms of the elements, it corresponds to the element of water. And we know that Pisces can be revolutionary. We know that the element of water has the ability to cleanse us, to purify us. And so, within the rune tir, we find cosmic forces that can help us in this work that results in an inner death. So when we are putting to work the magic of the rune tir is going to help us prepare the ground through that inner transformation, preparing the physical form, preparing our ethereal form for inner death and the dissolution of our psychological aggregates. This means that when we are getting ready to do these practices, we can always invoke our innermost, and we can ask our being for assistance in the intelligent use of the power of this rune. How does that intelligent use look like? We can ask our being to help us, giving us clarity, seeing and detecting any particular defect, being able to perceive it, seeing the effects of that defect at the level of the mind. How is it that it interrupts the ability for us to receive the word that comes from our real being, from the Father of our Father who is in secret? How is it that it affects the thinking processes? How is it that the ego creates interruption and those many distractions that ultimately result in identification, fascination, and keep us in the sleep of the consciousness? But we can also ask our being so that we can see the effects of these defects in our sentiments, so that we can see how our behavior changes, how our mannerisms change, whenever those defects are in charge of the human machine. This ultimately results in the comprehension of any particular defect. And of course, that comprehension enables the work of our Divine Mother of using that sacred electric fire to reduce these defects to a cosmic dust. This rune tir, associated with water, is a rune of transmutation. So ladies, at those specific times of the month where your body is going through its regenerative processes, those are good moments to not use this particular rune. That way, you're not trying to exercise a work of transmutation and move any of those deleterious substances within your organism. You just allow your body to conduct its particular work. But because it is a rune of transmutation, and when we think transmutation at this level of study, we tend to immediately start thinking about that super dynamic of love, that work with the great arcanum in the forge of the Cyclops. We cannot fall victim to the antics of our individual and particular Lucifer. Because as part of the fallacy of the ego. Thinking transmutation and immediately connecting that to the work in the forge of the Cyclops. If we don't have a spouse, then we start getting some feeling of being defeated, or that we cannot do it because something is missing. Those feelings of defeatism, those thoughts that we cannot do certain things because we don't have a spouse, etc., that leads many students to a state of inaction. They start thinking that we depend on having a spouse and a spouse is not present, and well, that inaction is a problem. Because the sense of defeatism will stop you from making any progress because simply you will not be doing your work. And somehow gives us a solution. If we could say an antidote, he gives us an antidote to this. And he invites the work of the transmutation of these waters, like for example, with the use of the rune TYR, because this type of transmutation invites so much vibration in the body that there are sparks of kundalini that can be released. And with the flow of those solar and lunar atoms up those two channels of the spine, the inductive flow of those atoms at the base of the spine, they can create a force at the triveni, at the base of the spine, that can release sparks of kundalini. And Samael says that the sparks of kundalini are transformative. So these transmutations, they also fuel the work. And we must not fall victim to the tricks of the ego, to not do work because we think that we are missing this or that. So let me show you how the practice of the rune TYR goes by. The practices that correspond to the rune TYR consist on placing the arms up and lowering the arms, Samael says, like shells. What that means is that we will bring our arms up and we will allow our arms just to, opening them up like a fan, just to bring the hands all the way down to the sides of the body. That's it. And as we are bringing those arms down, we will then simultaneously sing the mantra TYR. And it will resonate something like this. The T strikes the consciousness, the I invites the vibration of the blood, and the R invites then the vibration of all of those centers, inviting more circulation. This is what Samael tells us, that R intensifies the circulation in the veins, in the blood vessels, and these three letters together, as he says, they work wonders with the igneous flames, intensifying and stimulating the awakening. So once again, for this particular practice, stand tall with your heels together. And after you have invoked of your innermost and ask your innermost to be the guidance in this exercise, and you ask for the use, intelligent use of these forces so that you can see, so that you can perceive the defects, so that you can see those defects in action when we are distracted, the consciousness can perceive that. As we have asked that, raise our hands, deep breath through the nose. And we combine this particular rune with the rune BAR. Master Viracocha, Dr. Arnold Krumheller, in his work on the magic of the runes, also offers some very good information about this, and we're sharing it with you as complementary information from Krumheller. As part of the meditative exercise that Krumheller invites, he says the TYR rune represents the Trinity, since it is formed by three arms, but it is the triad in movement, in circulation. And in ancient manuscripts, it is indicated as the rune of reincarnation and triumph over life. For the practice, he says, erect body, your arms are detached from the body, your hands are lowered like shells, again, in that motion, from the top of your head, arms extended, opening your arms until they come and meet the legs, pronouncing at length the mantra TYR. And thus, he says, the personality is awakened. What he refers to is not the personality. He is referring to the consciousness. The consciousness is awakened by the impulse given to it with the Tao, the T, the blood through the I, and the circulation through the R. And Viracocha recommends that we sing this mantra 7 times. And notice, he also says this rune is practiced together with the rune BAR. So let's talk a little bit about the rune BAR. Because TYR works with the transmutation of waters. What BAR does is that BAR helps define what is being born in us through this work. BAR, as a rune, is empowering the consciousness for the incarnation of the cosmic Christ. It is helping prepare the consciousness for the advent of this creative cosmic force. BAR, in its origin in Syrian, literally means sun. And there is the word baron that is very common as a title of nobility, and it's also common in Spanish as an indication of a man, somebody of a masculine sexuality. So baron, we already know that indicates that it is sun. But son of what? Baron is the son of the earth. That is you, that is me. As a child of the earth. This is just a product of nature, here to satisfy the economy of nature itself. And we have already learned in our many other opportunities, many other lectures that we have been together, that nature has no interest at all in seeing anyone self-realize. The economy of nature does not care for our self-realization. But there is also this thing called Baram. And it so happens that Abraham's name was Ar-Barham. Ar-Barham, notice that from the rune Ario, Ar is a mantra that evokes fire. So we see Barham, and Barham means son of man. For the BAR rune, for the mantra, for this cosmic force to be effective, we must be actively working in the elimination of our psychological aggregates. We cannot be born as a son of man without first dying in our inferior nature. And the work that we do to eliminate this inferior nature will methodically move us to different graduations, different degrees or levels of being. As we continue working with the transmutation of our creative waters, part of those different degrees or levels of being, we'll see our creative waters changing from a dark color, in which they exist naturally, to a white, later on to a yellow. And once those creative waters turn of that yellowish color, that means that those waters are ready to be ignited with the fire of Kundalini. As we continue the work and we satisfy all of the needs of the physical and the ethereal bodies with that transmutation, the extra energy that we are transmuting will then naturally jump into a higher octave. That next octave, that is the octave of the 5th dimension. And as that energy starts condensing in that 5th dimension, we slowly start fabricating the solar astral body. Once that solar astral body is fabricated, once that fire is active within that solar astral body, you and I become citizens of that astral plane in that specific area of the 5th dimension. And then it is not just that we can exist there as a visitor when our physical body sleeps and we are wandering around in the astral plane, or when you can unfold consciously in your astral plane and simply be there. We stop being visitors to become citizens of that astral plane. And with that citizenship, with that ability to exist there, comes an immortality. And continuing the work here, Once all those energies are satisfied in that astral plane, they jump into a next octave in which we can start fabricating the mental body, the solar mental body. And beyond that, the solar causal body. And beyond that, the body of the spiritual soul. And beyond that, that seventh body that is the body of our innermost. This is work that is only enabled because Kundalini helps fabricate those superior existential bodies of the being. It is the fire of Kundalini what helps restore the faculties of all of our magnetic centers here within this physicality, here in this ethereal plane, because we know that our body has an ethereal counterpart. And this fire of Kundalini is what turns us into luminous beings. This is what gives us the ability to have a conscious presence in those higher realms of creation, where we become part of those beings that exist there because they have earned the right to exist there. And so, just like TYR corresponds to water, BAR corresponds to fire. And the astrological correspondence of BAR is the constellation of Aries. BAR is related to fire, to transformation, to fertilization, to death. And the rune BAR follows the rune TYR because fire follows water in the same way that life follows death. So BAR activates in us what TYR is preparing. With TYR, we transmute the water. With BAR, we seek to ignite it. TYR awakens and BAR engenders and allows us to incarnate. And so how do we practice this rune BAR? Well, for the posture, Samael invites us, cleverly combine the BAR exercises with those of the rune TYR. How do we do that? We assume with our physical body the shape of the rune BAR. As you look at this character, you can imagine that your physical body is erect, like in the position of attention, and you will bring your left arm, your hand to your hip, that creates that upper side of the B. And then you open your left leg to the side, allowing the sole of your left foot to be in contact with your right ankle. This is how you create the shape of that rune. So we put our arms up for the rune TYR. We open our arms and we're singing the mantra. And once we're down, we breathe again through the nose. We adjust our body, hand on the hip, the left hand, the left leg. The sole of your foot, your heel, comes in contact with your right ankle. And then we sing the mantra BAR. BAR. The combined practice of these two runes is intended to awaken the consciousness, to mix the forces of the two runes within our inner universe, and help us accumulate these crystic atoms of such tremendous power. So this is just an exercise that is not just symbolic. Samael gives this to us as operative inner science. Put it to use, observe the effects, and you will have first-hand experience on the transformative power of these two runes. Just like in the rune TYR, Dr. Wiracocha, he shares with us some good information. He says, the BAR rune reminds us of the name of the earth. In the Syrian language, it also means sun, and we can translate this as son of the earth, Baron. It has been said that R is the name of the sun, and by placing the consonant B before it, we give it objective force, so we bring that sun to earth. And when he explains the practice, he says, take a position facing the sun, the left arm akimbo, resting on the waist, and the left leg also juggling, resting the tip of the foot on the ground, close to your right leg so that you make the shape of the B, doing the mantra, BAR, Viracocha says, with this we unite the superior forces of heaven with all those that are our physical conditions. How many times do we do this? He says, do this 7 times. 7 times the rune TYR, 7 times the rune BAR. One combined with the next one. And so, this is how we do the practice of the runes TYR and BAR. We don't have the best camera, but do your best to follow how we're doing this practice. Let's do together the practice of the runes TYR and BAR 7 times as Viracocha recommends. We're going to start by standing up tall. We will stand with our feet, heels together, our body straight. We will be facing the east. And as we face the east, we cross our arms on our chest, the right one over the left. And we create that circle of protection around us by crystallizing the flaming star. For that purpose, we can use the mantra Klim Krishnaya. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Kopihana Vayavaya Swaha. Every time that we use these mantras, we bring into them objective imagination and willpower. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Kopihana Vayavaya Swaha. We want to see that flaming star crystallized around us. Let's do it one more time. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Kopihana Vayavaya Swaha. And with that flaming star formed, tenebrous entities, dark forces, ill wills, they all stand at bay. Within this circle of protection, we invoke our innermost by saying, Divine Father, Father of mine, you who are my true being, we're here humbly at your presence, infinitely grateful for this new opportunity. Let it be you, the one who guides us in this practice of the runes TYR and BAR. Allow us to receive these cosmic forces. Allow us to experience the transmutation of our creative orders. Help us see our bodies prepared for the advent of the fire, to receive and accumulate these Christic atoms. Divine Father, Divine Mother, we ask that with the power of these runes, that we can learn to perceive and see our defects, so that every time it becomes easier to understand how they affect our thoughts, our sentiments, and our actions, so that we can achieve the most profound of comprehensions in all the levels of the mind and offer this work to our Divine Mother for the elimination of these defects. We ask of this in your holy name. So be it. And with that, we stand straight, our arms to the side. We take a deep breath through the nose and we bring our arms up. And we sing the mantra TYR. And then we bring our left leg so that the sole of your left foot is touching your right ankle. We bring our left hand into our waist. Mantra BAR. BAR. Stand up straight. Do it again. Hands up. TYR. Change the posture. Bar. Again. Two more. One last time. And as we're getting ready to complete our exercise, we cross our hands, the right over the left. Divine Father, Divine Mother, we give you infinite thanks for your help. Thank you for enabling the transmutation of our energies. Thank you for granting us the ability to use the forces of these rooms to prepare our bodies, to comprehend our defects. We ask that all of this will materialize and crystallize according to your will, the universal charity, the divine law. Amen. 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 And as always, we finish all of our works with the sign of the cross, in the name of the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, the sign of the microcosmic star, by the Almighty and powerful, trace the circle, tetragrammaton, and we seal all our works of magic with the rune of victory, which is the rune Sig. And that brings an end to our practice today. Do we have any questions?
Nope, that was good. Thank you.
Very well. So if there are no questions, dear friends, thank you so much for joining us once again this evening. We will see you next week. May all beings be happy. Have a good night.
Have a good night.